Welcome to the podcast. The other day, I had the privilege of meeting a fellow podcaster who goes by the name Paper Street Hero. In this conversation, we dive into our individual stories that I like to call our audio journey, and other topics such as martial arts and the principles of honing skills. This was an overall refreshing conversation, especially since it took place at a studio where the hospitality was great. But without further ado, I bring you Gene from Paper Street Hero.
You're listening to Paper Street Hero. I am your main protagonist, Jean Kundo, and I have Darren here with me. And we were actually just having a pretty cool conversation messing around with the equipment. And Darren decided, why don't we record the rest of this? Because we were actually getting into some pretty meaty conversation. What was it we were talking about?
I asked you a question about your audio journey.
Oh, okay.
And you were like halfway into explaining it.
Oh, yeah. So the first half that you guys missed, the listener, I was just saying how like I grew up in a Pentecostal church. I guess since we're recording, I won't say that because then that's free advertising for them. But I grew up there, and at one point I was helping the sound team, and that's where I fell in love with just the whole thing of microphones, sound equipment, frequencies, and basically like fundamentals of sound engineering, and that helped me in choosing what kind of audio interface. And that was like years ago. That was
Wow. So you started with an audio interface instead of like the microphones themselves.
Yeah, it was just this huge soundboard.
Wow.
It had like 16 channels, and I had to not only control the output going to the live production, but then we were also recording it. So I'd have to make sure it sounded good going into the recording. And it was all live. For anybody who's been to any like Pentecostal church, they have their worship service first. So you have like live instruments, guitars, French horn, drums, and just people singing. And I had to make sure it sounded good. If it sounded like shit, it was on me. Like everybody would look at me. If some person's microphone just did that feedback, like everybody would just look back at me like it's my fault. And I'm like, I told that idiot to like keep his mic away from the freaking speaker so it doesn't feedback. But whatever, like that was part of it.
Then again, I've seen this happen many times before. People might just brush it off and think it's something wrong with the audio itself, not really the person behind it. Mm-hmm. But I was going to ask you, how long ago was this? How many years ago was this?
This was maybe back in 2006 or 7. That long ago.
Wow. So
Yeah.
you've been interested in audio more than me, or longer than me.
Well, on that, real quick, especially because we talk about like Bruce Lee, Jeet Kune Do, and stuff like that. I've learned this thing from my training where it's the hours, not the years. So yes, I've been doing it since I was 16, but for like most of the past decade, I wasn't. So yes, that was time that passed, but I wasn't touching it at all. Like this is, if anything, it was like just a 10-year hiatus, and now I'm back in it.
So how long were you doing that for the church?
Man, it was minimum 3 times a week, but depending on whatever events, like we'd have like they're called revivals. Like we'll have a visiting pastor or evangelist, and that'll be like freaking every night of the week kind of thing. I was doing it for a solid 2 to 3 years.
2 to 3 years of just doing that one job and not really trying to improve on audio in general?
I would have opportunities to improve because it wasn't only the preaching and stuff. We'd also have...
Okay, since that's true, then you would say that your journey did begin in that time frame.
Yes, correct. It did begin in that time frame, and I was exposed to different applications. Like, so we'd have the worship service, and then just the guy talking. We would have these Saturday night like live band, like cover band kind of shit. So I'd actually be able to do that as well, like different types of bands. You have a rock band that comes up, so I got to adjust their levels. Got a reggae band. You got a rap person that just does a audio track. It was just...
Rapping in church?
Yeah, but rapping about God and...
Yeah, well, of course.
Join our church and give us 10% of your income, like that kind of shit.
It's funny because of the contrast of what rap is today and...
Yeah, so
in that scenario,
that's what they would say is, oh, this is sanctified rap, like it's something that was meant for evil, but
it's
we do it for
rap.
Jesus. Yeah, bless the rap, and
it's like if rap was bread and then all of a sudden the priest blessed it, and now it's holy.
Yeah, now it's the sacrament, the freaking thing, the wine and shit. Yeah, that's what it was. And for me, I didn't care because it was just an opportunity to hone it, and it really helped. Like what made me really love this is I would get feedback from people. Like I've had people say, "I can tell when you're the one behind the soundboard because it sounds nice. It
Sounds good.
And I was like, "Oh, that does wonders to my
Yeah.
ego."
There's a little mistakes.
There will be little mistakes,
Is
but
that what they mean, or
no,
do they mean it actually sounds really good, like to the ears?
yes, yes. Like I guess I would focus on the details. Like for example, there was a dude, right? He played the French horn, and I would make sure his French horn came out because he's next to the guitars and they're blaring. So the dude's blowing his face out trying to play this French
Yeah.
horn, and nobody can hear him. So I'd make sure he comes through.
So
And
like the sound levels are high
yeah,
enough.
I'd always mess like for see how you have these sliders. So like if my voice is more powerful, then I'd kind of just bring it down just a little bit. Or if I notice that you're further away, so I'd raise it. Like I'd pay attention to everybody and make sure that they're not singing or playing for nothing. I'd make sure that they can come out in the overall.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So, what would you say that experience would translate into skill in like mixing music?
Yeah, because it all comes down to the ear. I mean, I'm no professional by any stretch, but when you listen to something, you can tell if somebody really loved what they were doing because they want to make sure it sounds amazing. Because you could just totally have a bunch of sound coming at you. That doesn't mean it's good.
Yeah, yeah.
But you could, if you have somebody
Like certain instruments have to have a certain level of gain.
yeah, or even actively like this dude's playing low, but his solo's coming up, so I'm going to kind of boost him just a little bit more, just for that solo, and then actively pull him down. And like I've never been able to get into like the sound booth of recording like somebody doing music, like some of the people like locals, they have their personal recording studios and stuff. I've never been able to do that, but I have a fundamental understanding of how it works. And but yeah, that's where I started. 10-year hiatus, and now I'm back at it with just podcasts and trying to find ways to have fun with this interface. What about yours? Because you were like, oh, that's way longer than mine, but
way longer. I kind of already explained it before. Like,
well, but that was off of the
okay.
off
So
of
I
the
have to
recording.
explain it again. Well,
Come on, make it fair.
Okay, my interest in podcasts stemmed from my interest in filmmaking in high school because I just loved doing video projects with my friends, and I'd actually invite friends to do video projects for a different class they weren't even in, and I just had certain people who were also interested in that stuff. But now I've gotten past my interest in filmmaking because I realize how hard it is. And you can't just decide to do a film just like you could decide to do a podcast straight away. But now I think I'm doing podcasts now because it's just more consistent. And you could just produce a higher number of podcasts than you can with film. Like film takes so much time, so much scheduling.
If you had the time and the resources, would you get back into it though?
I would. I definitely would. I still have ideas
Yeah, okay.
in
That's
what
good.
kind
That's
of films I want to do.
That's good. Yeah, if anything, this can just be like a little temporary like placeholder just to have something
Yeah.
consistent.
It's kind of what it is actually, because in UOG, I was part of this club called the Film Club, and it should be self-explanatory about what it's about.
It's a fight club, but they call it film.
But it wasn't a very structured club. Like there were so many new people, and the ones that were there for a long time didn't really know what they were doing. No offense to the ones that are listening to this right now who happen to be those people.
Yeah, it's not a personal.
So
shot.
I was in the club for like a year, and then like a year later, it kind of fell apart, and it was just me and these couple other dudes, and so we decided since we don't have enough manpower to make a film, why not just do something more consistent and that takes less effort? And so I decided to do podcasts, and the original name of it was called Conference Room Dailies or Conference Room Weeklies because that's the only place we knew that we could do podcasts in that offered us the isolation to do it. But that didn't really work out. Our communication was low. That meant not meeting up so often, and it finally broke off once the pandemic started. Like once the pandemic started, us UOG students couldn't meet at UOG to do our UOG Film Club podcast.
Oh,
And so now my channel is actually called Triton Productions, but I'm thinking of renaming it because Triton Productions isn't a thing anymore.
mm-hmm. And it's also like that's UOG. Like, what would you call yourself?
Yeah.
Just on your own endeavor?
That's the problem. And so far, the things that I would talk about would be different from what I talk about if I was under the club's name. And the reason why there's a difference is because I'm involving more controversial topics as well, instead of just student-friendly topics.
Yeah. That's also a reason why, like with this place, back with COVID, they launched just a little bit before the whole COVID thing became like what it is now. And I've thought of that too. Like I feel like it's so sterile here that I can't really court controversy as much as I want, because I'd like to also just the whole purpose of Paper Street Hero is to have difficult conversations. So it's like I can't have a difficult conversation if I'm scared to court controversy and just say something that somebody might get turned off of, like, oh, Trump was actually not Hitler, and it's like, oh my God, you need to be deplatformed.
How could you say that?
Yeah, exactly. Like, no, I'm gonna have difficult conversations. Like we talk about suicide. You know, we talk about the rising suicide rates with the whole thing, but apparently you can't. Oh, it's okay that these people are killing themselves.
It's easy to say what most people want to hear, but it's harder to introduce unconventional ideas.
Yeah, or just unconventional, like just something that challenges that idea, but then they want to say we're the resistance. It's like, you're not the resistance. You're what is cool to say or do.
Like,
I think.
Do you want what you want to hear, or do you want the truth? And I think the truth is much more important.
Yeah, it is definitely. It's not always comfortable, but it is something stronger to hold on to when life gets chaotic. Yeah. I like that though. I like. I'm glad that we were able to have this conversation. Actually, I think I got a text from Mike on our group because he wanted to be a part of this.
Like right now.
Oh, he got I see that he texted my group, but usually when he does that, it's because he's aiming at like me and Stefan, and I'm the other guy. But I think if it was just me directly, he would just text me directly. Only because I wanted to have this just to see if we could get to know each other without the help of the mutual friend kind of thing.
And that's definitely possible.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's cool, man.
Like, who knows each other except for the individuals who are talking?
Definitely. And we're grown men. Like, I didn't need Mike to hold my hand to introduce me to you.
Yeah.
He did want to be a part of it though, because he seemed very excited. Like,
I think he could join us later on, like after we know each other, so we're all basically friends now.
Yep. One other thing I was actually going to do here was host some tabletop game nights, like D&D or those things, just so I could explore that idea, because with Paper Street Hero, I use a lot of RPG elements, terminology.
Yeah, I've listened to the intro actually. Your
episode 1.
Or was it episode 0?
Oh yeah. I'm sorry, I keep forgetting that it's episode 0. The prologue.
And it's very game oriented.
Yeah. I might keep that audio aesthetic, but I feel like I need to just make it a little bit more raw and a little bit more honest, just because if I'm going to be talking about difficult subjects, I still want to finesse it, but I don't want to speak from it from a perspective of that I'm speaking as somebody that I'm not. Like it's something that I've struggled with, something a lot of people have struggled with, some people more than others. I didn't have it that bad relatively compared to like other people, but because I come from that world, like I don't want to put flowers all over it when it's something that shouldn't have that kind of treatment. Like, hey, we're just gonna talk about this really difficult thing, and we gotta just push away everything that is unnecessary.
Yeah. Although that would be ideal. You can't force someone to talk about something difficult.
Definitely. So that's what the endeavor was supposed to be. Like, we play video games and we talk about things that happen that can transition into the difficult subject. Or you know how like you're gonna take the recording and like I'm not gonna upload it to
Yeah,
my
yeah.
stuff. You're gonna take it and what you do with it is up to you.
Mhm.
That's also what this
Well,
was supposed to be.
also
Is
up to you because it's your platform, and
it is.
I'm most likely going to send you the audio too to give you the choice on whether or not you want to upload that to what is it?
Paper Street Hero.
Well, Paper Street Hero, but the
Oh, Spotify.
yeah.
Yeah, Spotify. Anchor through Spotify.
And
Uh,
another question: how did you come up with the title Paper Street Hero?
Paper Street Hero is a play on Fight Club.
Oh,
Man, but you haven't watched it, huh?
no, I haven't.
Yeah.
I hear it's good though. Like not just choreography and action, but philosophically.
Yeah, it's quite deep. And it translates for a movie that was made like what late 90s, like 1999 or something like that. It's quite relevant today. Like you could just easily swap out certain ideas and it's something that can just apply here. Silence this. So Paper Street Hero, in the movie, the narrator meets Tyler Durden and Tyler sells soap. And the name of this soap is called Paper Street Soap Company. And he makes Paper Street Soap Company, or he runs it out of his home on Paper Street. But Paper Street is just a generic name assigned to streets on maps that end up never getting a name. So they're streets that exist, but nobody knows they exist. So it's like, a hero from a place nobody really gives a shit about kind of thing. That's what it is. Hero from nowhere kind of thing. And that way, the listener, like me, I say, yeah, I'm the protagonist, but everybody's the hero in their own story. We all got our demons to fight. We all got our struggles.
Yeah.
Because we talk about death, death is often seen as one of the final bosses for anybody. Like I'm sure you can think of some video games where death is like, if not the final boss,
like the manifestation of death in a form that's that's lively,
something like that. Yeah, just like you could think of, I'm sure, some video games where you fight a representation like Hades or or some representation of this guy.
A death that could hit back.
Yeah, or that you could conquer. And then one thing that me and Stefan kind of, not that we came up with, because I've heard this before, is just I kind of want to make it part of my podcast, is it's not so much death, it's the fear of death. That is the challenge. Because, death is a part of life. Like everybody's going to die. Everyone, everything. It's just natural for the end to come. So
at the same time, you wouldn't want to wish death upon one of your loved ones.
Correct. Definitely.
Even though it's it's natural, it happens.
Correct. But when we understand that death is no longer something to be afraid of, we can see that fear of death. So now it's fear, just fear in general. Like why would somebody not start a podcast, or why would somebody like me take forever to start a podcast? That's what I addressed like in that episode 0, and even in some other episodes, like I talk about my fears. Like that's what Paper Street Hero is kind of about, is me challenging my demons, challenging my fears, challenging just things that are really difficult, but that everybody can identify with to some degree at some point. And even like on death, there's natural death, there's, unnatural, there's death caused by somebody else, murder, then there's the self-death, suicide, like those things. Like I just use it as a platform to poke at those things. Maybe not directly sit you down and, how do you feel about your life? How do you feel if you die tomorrow? Like I don't want to do that. But if we have conversations about other stuff, and then we just kind of pepper it about, like season it about, how did you conquer that fear kind of thing, stuff like that. Because I'm so new to it, I'm still, making whatever mistakes that I'm making and learning from it. And it evolves as I apply those lessons. So that's why it's evolving to martial arts now, because for me, if I use martial arts as a means to make sense of this crazy world, then I'd like to make podcasts in the realm or in the arenas that martial arts is trained and practiced. I can't do that here.
That's an interesting idea. Hosting your podcasts in different martial arts facilities that you go to.
Yeah. And because then it contains the people that I want to interview.
Yeah. Oh, of course, that might be a challenge in terms of just overall like proper setups.
kind of, but so that's what all of this equipment, like, it can handle. All I need is a small table and either a power source or access to a plug,
Mm-hmm.
and I set it up instantaneously,
Oh,
like
yeah,
15
I
minutes.
forgot your interface doesn't require a computer, right? Like
No,
it's its own recording.
yep. And if it did need it, I could just connect like an iPad to it or something. Like I have an iPad Pro and it has that Type C connection, but then I can also Bluetooth it. I could use my phone. Like,
Yeah.
I don't need this. This is just kind of to look cool, or it's more for me to play video games while I'm waiting for somebody, or if I'm just dicking around. But yeah, this thing works on its own. It powers the microphone on its own. And yeah, how I see it happening at a gym, right, is first I would be attending like somewhat regularly, and then I would ask the professor, coach, sensei, whoever's the leader,
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, I have this podcast. Can I set it up over here in the corner, away from everybody? We do our thing, and then afterwards, can we sit down, like me and you and these two other people? Could we just sit down and just start talking?
Do you think you might run into the problem of the microphones picking up people in the background who haven't left the facility yet?
Yeah, and I actually welcome that because I
really?
want to capture the essence of being in that place.
Interesting.
Like if I want a studio, so I don't know if I said it during this recording or I think it was before we hit record. I do have a friend who does want me to have or take up one of his rooms in the building that he's rehabbing. So that'll be the studio setup. The studio, I'll have it all sound treated and all this, professional stuff. That's where those conversations can happen. But how I want to have conversations with people is I don't want to. Okay, I was gonna say I don't want it to be like Joe Rogan, but technically Joe Rogan does this too because he has the facility. I'd like to be like me and you. We go to one of the gyms that I go to, open mat. You show me some karate stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe we do some, not so much sparring, but like.
Oh, we can spar though.
I'm totally down. Yeah, right. But like as it goes, like that's part of the relationship is we have those exchanges. I actually have another monologue where I talk about that, where the people that I am the closest with are people that I've had that kind of engagement with. Like I've known people some my entire life where I don't touch them because for whatever reason I like light hugs at best, but I don't get really physically intimate with them, not on a sexual way, but just like in that dangerous way. Because Dr. Peterson, he says,
Yeah.
Men need consensual rough housing. So that's what I want to do, is have this place where I have consensual rough play with these guys. We grapple,
Right.
spar, freaking whatever, and that there's that magic that happens, that intimate situation where we both come out of it alive. Like, hey, we totally could have killed each other
Yeah, that's
several
true.
times.
That's true. Like, in a lot of the UFC fights I see, at the end of the fight, they're all bloodied up. They've pretty much beaten each other to a pulp, but they hug each other anyways afterwards and showing their respect. Like, hey, I enjoyed that.
Yeah. A lot of times they'll go out and get a beer or a dinner together after.
And it's very interesting to see just those types of people. 1 minute ago, they were punching each other's face the hardest they can, and 1 minute later, they're hugging and embracing.
Yeah. Or look at Habib and Connor. Like Habib, he was gonna fuck up Connor. Like
Yeah.
he want like he's like make jokes now. Like he's beating the shit out of, like, how come you're not saying anything? But now you see pictures of them. They'll train together. They'll hang out. They'll go get like they're bros kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because they've made progress past that.
I think this is similarly connected to just the idea of men or women being together under stressful situations and experiencing the same suffering that each of them do. People creating just a transcendent bond with each other when they are experiencing the same suffering.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like this happens in war, this happens in fights, this happens in many different scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
Like in most war movies, you see their bond is just incredibly great, even though they're all separated in ranks.
Yeah, because the suffering, we overcame this together. We all made it out alive.
Uh-huh.
This is why when soldiers come back, when like it takes them a while, sometimes they never do.
It takes them a while to adjust to civilian life because they're so used to being with their brothers in an incredibly hard time.
Yeah. Whereas when they come here, it's like they see us wasting shit, eating like stuffing our face. Not that they're different or better, but you know, they come from just this dangerous place, and you guys are so fucking safe. And then to have somebody in that realm, like I went and I fought for your freedom, and then for you to tell me that I'm a
Yeah.
piece of shit just because I don't agree with
And
you.
people don't take that statement seriously.
Mhm.
They just see it as some type of boast.
Yeah.
Like, but that's as serious as it gets. What he says about "I fought for your freedom," that's literal.
Mm-hmm.
Like almost losing his life, that's literal.
Yeah.
And I believe that people don't fully understand the meaning of that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there are people that abuse it. So I don't know if Mike told you about Stefan, but because he's a
No.
veteran.
Not, he hasn't told me about him.
Oh, okay. You'll more than likely meet him. So Stefan, he's the third one in our group where he is a Purple Heart veteran. He did time overseas, and he got like blown halfway to hell. And
Well, actually, I think he has brought him up before.
yeah, and so he's the one that he's who I called my shaman. Like when I first started hanging out with him, and so we call it salad whenever we're recording or anything like that. When we call it salad, we're like, oh, let's have some salad together. And so when he introduced me to salad, he actually set the ambience. Like he didn't just have all the lights on and here try it out. Like he put on some lo-fi, made it really comfortable. You know, we would have dinner, like just make it really chill, and then we have it so that way the experience is just that much more mind opening. You know, that I gotta select my words carefully. But you know what I'm talking about. So that's what I learned from him is if I'm gonna have somebody come in here, the atmosphere does definitely play a role. And because I'm trying to be chill in here, versus if I were to go to a MMA mat or like a jiu-jitsu mat or something, because of the high energy, the conversation will be different. I'm not gonna like roll with somebody and spar with somebody and then, all right, let's turn the lights down low and, you know, come close.
Let's get intimate.
Yeah, you know, because it's a different level of intimacy.
Yeah.
You know, there's different types. The danger there is I've actually used this on I didn't always intend to, but I've used these techniques on women, and it's allowed them to like open up actually a lot more. It's just because I'm married, like I have to like draw the line at certain places, but that's also something that I like to talk about with Mike and Stefan is just the learning the barriers of intimacy, how to cross them, and how to like make them feel safe, and then kind of take things further from there. Just different levels of intimacy, because that's all we are as humans. We just want intimacy. We want somebody to, you know, love romantically. Then we want just a small group of friends to be really close and tight with. Then that's enough. We don't need hundreds and thousands and millions of followers. Just a small group of people that I can be myself with, right?
I'm pretty similar to that too. I don't have too many friends, but the ones I do have, I'm pretty close to.
Yeah. And do you think it's enough?
I think it's enough, but of course I'm down to make more friends. You know, there's billions of people in the world with different experiences that they can offer.
Definitely.
And the odds of them being compatible with my personality and me liking them is pretty high.
Right.
There's so many other people out there that you could be friends with. I'm pretty sure you could be friends with many celebrities.
I'd like to believe that, right?
Who wouldn't want to be friends with Joe Rogan?
Yeah.
Except some people.
But it would be like a minority of people. Yeah. He's really cool.
So to think that you could have a maximum number of friends, I wouldn't say that's completely true.
But what about the looking at it as how often are you going to spend time? Because if you have a million friends and you only have 24 hours in a day,
there's another consideration.
Yeah.
Of course, really good friends understand each other, and you know, the fact that people do have their own lives to attend to.
Yeah.
And if they know that their friend has a goal and they're using much time to attend to that goal, they would respect that and would actually try to push them forward.
Mm-hmm. What other celebrities would you want to try to be friends with, or at least want to meet somewhere and see what happens?
I can't really think of that on the top of my head. I don't know.
I'd go with Tom Hardy.
Tom Hardy?
Tom Hardy's badass. I think he just got his blue belt in jiu-jitsu.
I don't know much about Tom Hardy.
Check him out, dude. He actually
maybe this UFC fighter. His name's Stephen Thompson. He's a karate guy.
Wonder Boy?
Wonder Boy, yeah.
Oh yes, dude. Stefan actually talks about Wonder Boy a lot. I've seen a few of his stuff
He's
too.
one of my favorite fighters. He just recently fought, I think last month.
Yeah.
Uh,
Who did he fight?
He fought this dude named Jeff Neal,
Okay,
and he actually knocked out Frank the Crank.
Jeff Neal. Not
Sorry, Frank.
Uh,
Yeah,
I didn't know that. Damn, you follow it a lot more than I do. That's cool.
I
I'm
do
still
follow
new to it.
UFC a lot.
Cool. But yeah, the last thing I saw from Stephen Thompson was, I think Hamzat Chimaev was trying to he was just calling everybody.
Yeah, he wanted to fight, and I want to see him fight again, just so he could prove himself to be a top contender.
Chimaev.
Yeah,
Am I saying his name right?
Chimaev. I did say Chimaev.
Chimaev. But I remember when he wanted to fight Thompson, Thompson's like, no, I've been
He's
at
like,
this way
nah,
longer. Like,
nah.
you don't get to cut in front of the line just because you're running your mouth like.
And
all
he
these
also
other
doesn't
guys.
want to be a gatekeeper to lower ranked fighters.
Yeah, I saw that.
Like, why would you, anyways? You know,
Gotcha.
you'd always want to be climbing the ranks.
And he did. I think you said it. Like he has a karate background.
Yeah, he does.
And I think I saw a video of like how he conditions his knuckles. What's that thing that?
It's Makiwara.
There we go. That thing's cool. And I like how he says it. He's like, I know it just looks like just some trash thrown together, but it actually serves a specific purpose.
Oh yeah,
Like, it has
you
to.
should see my sensei's knuckles.
Uh-huh.
They're like bulbous and rock hard. Like the nerves aren't there anymore because he's punched that thing for so long.
Nice.
And his shins and his forearms are just the same. And so I was actually thinking of maybe inviting you to my dojo, but it's kind of closed down right now because of the pandemic.
Mhm.
But if I see any opportunity to invite you, I would, since I know that you're very interested in martial arts.
Oh yeah, I love all of them.
And maybe I want to give you that karate experience that you're missing from your arsenal.
I'm down. I just love martial arts, man. I love the philosophy that created them and just how it's an insight into a culture. You know, like it's very much like food. Like I like food and martial arts because I like to learn people.
Me too. And I also like cooking. That's like the equivalent of doing martial arts.
Yeah. So you cook, huh?
I try to.
Try.
So far, I'm pretty good at making white sauce pasta. Pasta itself, like making noodles.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love doing that because it tastes very authentic. And I would say that I've mastered making the French omelet, but of course you can't completely master something 100%. But I would say I'm pretty good at it.
Question. Do you have a girlfriend?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you ever cook for her?
Yep.
What was the thing that you cooked for her just to make it seem like you know what the fuck you're doing? Was it pasta?
It was a pasta.
All right. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I feel like that's a move. Like I think like every guy has to have a move, like a small arsenal. Like you said, like martial arts, like I'm not a chef, but if I need to cook for you, like this is kind of like my go-to or one of my go-tos. Damn, dude. I'm thankful that Mike introduced us, or
Yeah, me too.
a lot of cool things that we're kind of like on the same page with.
Oh, also, I was going to mention going back to martial arts and cooking. Like, it's also very similar if you think of a chef and a good martial artist. Like, a good martial artist has lots of things in his arsenal. He's taken many techniques from different martial arts that work for him, and that makes him a fighter. And it's just the same as a chef. Like, they're not just good at cooking one thing, but they have so many skills at cooking different things that it's just not as simple as that. It's not as simple as getting good at like maybe a violin or being good at. I'm saying that it's just not as simple as some other skills that you would learn and get good at.
I do like that you're using it in a martial arts application, because this is where Bruce Lee, we're talking about art in all of its forms, because that's really all we're doing is just
basically art.
expression. There's culinary art. You're talking about culinary art. We got
Yeah.
martial art, painting art.
Painting, yeah.
Even people that there's people who just build shit, and then there's people who make an art of building. Architects, stuff like that. So I feel like when you understand that everything is an art, you can start to look for the fundamentals that translate to everything. Like for example, culinary, right? You always have what you got your starches,
you got the basics.
proteins. If you know the basics, like if you know the fundamentals and you know the principles, so a chef is somebody who can go into your particular pantry, go into my pantry, and be like, okay, this is what you got to work with. This is what I'm going to do. Versus you got these cooks where it's like, oh, I can't cook anything because you don't have anything to cook with, and it's like, well, a poor carpenter blames his tools. So a good artist,
like a good chef uses whatever he has and makes something great with it.
Yeah,
despite having a lack of spices or meat.
Yeah,
he makes something great with anything.
Yeah, that's what separates. So that's the artist versus just the cook.
It's also just like martial artists too. Like, okay, so they know how to kick, they know how to punch, they know how to block. But there's a difference between having those techniques and being good at those techniques. And if you're good at that and you're good at something more advanced, then you're a good martial artist.
Yeah. Or even just knowing the principle behind a specific movement. Like there are people who they'll go through, like they'll get the full training, but when they don't understand the principles behind those specific set of movements.
Like a very good boxer could easily be a novice person in Taekwondo. Or a person who knows so many techniques but hasn't really mastered all of them yet. Like just that Bruce Lee quote, right? Fear the man who...
I fear the man. I don't fear the man who can do 1,000 kicks. I fear the man who does one kick 1,000 times.
Yeah, 1,000 times.
Yeah, and people like to look at that in its like word for word and be like, well, then if he only does one kick, then it's like, no, that's not what he's saying. It's if he has 5 kicks that he's done 1,000 times each, he is highly proficient at those 5 kicks versus a dude who is aware of all the different kinds of kicks, but he hasn't perfected even one of them. Like that's the
and the dude who's done one kick 1,000 times has a high chance of landing that kick on you.
Yep.
And so that's why you should be scared.
Yep.
Instead of a person who's done 1,000 kicks one time, right?
They just went through pretty much the Taekwondo handbook.
Like, what's the possibility of you landing a tornado kick on me if you only did it one time?
Yep.
Like, you basically don't even know it.
Exactly. So it's a repetition, and that's so because we're talking about art, we look at the principles. Well, first off, you're gonna have to repeat something. You're gonna have to do it correctly first, and then repeat it 1,000 times. Like with cooking, you have to know what happens when you cook the steak. You can't be like, oh, we'll see how it goes. It's like, no, I know this much heat, this type of pan.
Trial and error. And that's what I had to go through to get good at making pasta and just perfecting that egg. I made that omelet so many times, and I've seen so many different versions of what the omelet turned out to be. And part of that is recognizing those inconsistencies of what the omelet is, consistency-wise and taste-wise.
Yeah.
And you recognize those inconsistencies and you try to avoid them as much as possible. Yeah. And that's the part of learning.
And it's good that you did it with the omelet because, somebody can look and be like, well, that's just a fucking omelet. But it's like, but look at this thing. I did this in the most perfect way that I can. Like, don't shit on it just because it's an egg or, egg and like these ingredients. Like, if you can't master these principles on something small, you definitely can apply it to something bigger. If you can't cook an egg the most perfect way you can, you will not be able to cook a steak.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
And the interesting part is, and I'm guilty of this, like, but I want the glory of being able to cook a steak. Like, fuck the egg. Like, I don't want this small thing. And so this is where Paper Street Hero comes in, where you've played like Borderlands or these RPG games where it'll have the enemy's level. And when you put your reticle on, it's like, shows like a skull, like, not recommended. Like, you don't want to engage this guy. Your level is too low.
Yeah.
Go fight the cockroach over there. Go fight the rat.
I don't want to fight the cockroach.
Yeah, so you go and you fight this guy and he fucks you up. And he's like, you're not ready for this. Go repeat. Like, here's a whole slew of, like, a whole nest of cockroaches.
There's
and
different levels to things. You can't just hop straight to level 100 in Pokemon.
I mean, there are those people who can, and that's really awesome. Like, you've seen those savants. Yeah, they're rare. Like, that's not the normal thing for people like me. Like, I'm not that smart. Like, whatever. I know my faults. I know my shortcomings. So it's like, okay, I'm going to go and kill a bunch of cockroaches, and hopefully I'm strong enough to take on this troll or this cave troll or ogre or some shit.
Yeah.
That's why I use that terminology in Paper Street Heroes, because with these arts, with all of these challenges, with these things that you want to do with yourself, you can't go and paint the Mona Lisa if you can't even draw the most perfect stick figure.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like there's
Yeah,
there's
exactly. And I know that being an artist myself as well.
exactly.
I'm pretty good at drawing it. It's not just a God-given gift. Like people tell me, like my parents tell me, "Oh my God, you're so talented." Yeah. I wish I was born with this
I
skill.
wasn't born with it.
No, it took me years of repetitive drawing to actually draw this good.
I gotta see some of your stuff because I dabble
yeah.
in
Well,
artwork. As
I'll
well.
show you later. But yeah, it's also very similar to what I say, like this concept that I always bring up with different philosophies.
Mm-hmm.
And I borrow the concept of the Dragon of Chaos from Jordan Peterson.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say that the Dragon of Chaos is very intimidating. That's why many people don't want to face it. That's like your biggest fear. But in order to overcome chaos itself, you have to see it as little micro problems, like micro obstacles. So instead of a Dragon of Chaos, right, just think of like a little inconvenient gecko.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not too destructive. It's not too intimidating either.
It's manageable.
It's manageable, just like how you're so scared to write a really long 10-page essay.
Mm-hmm.
You start one sentence at a time.
Yep.
And if you deny that, like you're telling me you can't write one sentence.
Yeah.
Is that impossible to you?
Correct. And that's why he even says address it, like, and just be honest with yourself. Like, I'll tell you go and write one page, and it's like, okay, I don't even want to do a page. Well, what about half a page? What about a paragraph? All right, do at least the fucking first sentence.
Like
Because
so many principles just center and base themselves on this concept that could be interchangeable with different words. It doesn't have to be Dragon of Chaos. It could be the Crocodile of Chaos. It could be the Lion of Chaos.
right.
But it's understandable in the sense that if you see it in an order and chaos type of concept and the intention of overcoming that in a micro scale.
Well, it translates just to about anything. Like, look at people wanting to, work out. It's like, okay, yeah, you can't deadlift freaking 300 pounds. At least get familiar with the bar.
Yeah. And it seems very simple when you say it, but people just miss this important principle. Like you have to do things little by little in order to get good at it in the long term.
I think you said consistency earlier, and pretty much like anybody who's a pro at anything, they'll always say.
Like you're aware of the Japanese principle and philosophy Kaizen. Mike that has on his bio.
Recently, yeah, I've come across
and
it.
it basically means that if you want to get good at something, just do at least 1 minute of it every day. And 1 minute, it's not a lot to ask. 1 minute's not much. It's just the same as doing this technique, just doing this little motion, or just writing this one sentence, or just battling this one cockroach in a video game. It's the same thing. It's universal.
I think for that, because you're using the blank of chaos, right? It's address chaos for this little window of time. I'm not telling you to go address it for the rest of your life because it's for eternity. Like, when does this hell end? But it's like, okay, for the next 60 seconds, for the next 5 minutes, for the next 15 minutes, like there's a beginning and an end. You're not going to be in there forever. It's not going to kill you. Just for this small window that you predetermine, address chaos, and then close the door when you're done.
The most important thing is just starting. Like so much time is wasted when you do things that don't matter and procrastinate. And procrastinating is it's just a very common problem that people have.
I struggle with that.
And the solution is very simple. You just got to think in a proper way about it.
Bruce says, if you spend too much time thinking about a thing, you'll never get it done.
Exactly. Overthinking.
Yeah.
Many of us suffer from that. I do myself. And there's just so many things I wish I could have done, but didn't do because I overthought about it. Like I didn't start. Like why do people wait till the last day to finish an essay when they could have done it before, weeks ago?
Right.
Like they had all that time. They just chose not to do it because, oh, it's hard. They see the Dragon of Chaos and not the 1,000 little geckos that they could have just stomped on and gradually.
Yeah, I totally get that. And then up until, because there is a deadline that it's due, it's like you have until this time to do it. And because they're constantly pushing it off tomorrow.
Like I could wait till tomorrow.
Yeah. But then eventually
it makes you feel safe.
Correct. Safe. But then eventually when you say I'll do it tomorrow, oh shit, tomorrow it's due. I've used up all of my tomorrows. So now I have no choice.
Oh, you're in the red zone.
Yeah, exactly.
You feel threatened. You feel like there's an impeding negative force that's about to eat you.
Yeah. Or at the very least, it's like, and you ran out of tomorrows. It's do or die. Like, do it.
Only at that point is when you feel like you have to do something. Like people have to use negative influence in order to actually attend to their problems.
I like how Dr. Peterson tries to use the reward system kind of thing. Like, okay, if you can't do it by yourself, what does he say? He's like, okay, you like coffee, right? If you address this, then you can have your coffee, or you whatever, fill in the blank. You like chocolate, you like Netflix binging. Before you start up Netflix, do a little bit of this, and keep it reasonable. Don't do it for 60 seconds and then binge for 3 hours. Like, do your one episode, but prior to starting your one episode, address your essay, address your whatever it is that you've been putting off, even for just 5, 10, 15 minutes, something like that. Then that way you get the incentivized reward. And so what I've been doing for Paper Street Hero is I've been, for 30 days, I started January 1st. Technically, I started a few days earlier just to get used to the consistency, is I just do one quote a day from Bruce Lee's, it's in my bag. It's called Striking Thoughts. Have you seen it? It's just a collection of all of Bruce Lee's quotes. And there's like, I don't know, hundreds in there. So every day I do one quote, a little bit of feedback. That way, that's me addressing that Dragon of Chaos of like just trying to be consistent in something. And okay, every day before midnight of that day, I gotta put up the quote. Sometimes I'll do it at 11:30 at night. At least I put it up, just to be consistent. I can actually show you the book.
Consistent actions are pretty important, no doubt. Like, have you seen that speech from this Navy SEAL officer at this graduation where he started it off with saying, once you wake up, make your bed?
No, he made a book out of that, right?
I'm not sure. I've only seen that speech.
Tell me about the speech, because I've heard of it.
It's been a while, but I'm just going to focus on what he said in the beginning.
What you took from it?
Yeah, what I took from it. Making your bed in the morning. As soon as you wake up, what is making your bed? It means that you voluntarily try to attend to a problem that you don't have to attend to, but you do anyways. And once you solve that problem of a messy bed, you feel pride, and that serotonin builds up and makes you want to face other problems that you need to face later on in the day.
Yeah, and then I think a part of that also is that at the end of the day, it's ready for you. So whatever problems you face in the day, when you come back, you don't have to, I also got to fix my bed to sleep in.
And it's extremely close to what Jordan Peterson says about cleaning your room.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why would you not want to clean your room? It's your space that you have to yourself in your private life.
Like, or just in this big universe.
Like if it's not clean, it's messy, and if it's messy, your life is basically messy. Your worldview is unorderly.
Yeah,
it's chaotic.
I've seen people poke fun at that because they missed the point of it. They're like, "Okay, I clean my room. Now what?" And it's like, do I gotta tell you how to do every little thing in your life, or you know what I'm saying? Like. Anyways, we don't have to get into the criticisms of that, because we're all about trying to just tools we use to just help build that future that we're trying to materialize.
Flush your toilet.
Right. It's like you just got to be taught how to wipe your ass and everything. You can just stick it in there.
You have to clean your penis.
Yeah.
Are you allowed cursing in this podcast?
For me,
I'm afraid.
For me, I do. I just mark it explicit and.
Oh, I see. Oh man, I shouldn't have done that then.
Oh no, I cuss in my shit all the time. I mean,
okay.
If I'm gonna be honest about something, then I'm not gonna censor
wipe your
myself.
ass.
Yeah.
12 rules for life. By
the
Dr. Jordan Peterson.
Kermit. You ever see the video where?
Yeah, I've seen it.
There's that one dude where he's like watches Jordan Peterson once and then he just applies like everything.
Yeah. You should see the AI voice video of him talking about It's a whole speech of him talking about like pooping your pants. It's so funny.
I'll check
It
it
sounds
out.
exactly like him. This
I'll check it
video.
out. See, what's interesting, we're not going to do it here because we actually don't even have a whole lot of time, but
Like, if you don't poop your pants, then you're not confronting the dragon of chaos.
what I like is that those are usually done by fans of his, and
Yeah.
they're just having some
Like,
fun.
why
with it.
why wouldn't it?
Yeah. Well, because there's people who like they hate him.
Yeah, but they don't know the things that he says, and
Yeah.
the product, the quality of the video wouldn't be as good as fans who actually know what he says.
Yeah.
Makes him say slightly different things that would be funny.
And like we can see that it's not meant to be insulting. It's meant to just it's like that concept of meme where it's like, oh, I get that. Despite us being two different parts of the world, I get that joke. I guess that's the there's a thin line between insulting him and just having fun with what he's done for a lot of people. Definitely changed my life. That's also what Paper Street Hero was supposed to be. Is I just kind of parrot stuff that he says, or I use a platform.
Well, I wouldn't want to parrot.
Or not so much parrot, but like how we've quoted him several times already in this, and then we can kind of direct people to that. Like make it for how Dr. Peterson's words apply to Guam, because you could find videos everywhere about people's takes on it, and I'm sure they're all great, but I want to kind of bring it home because I see things on this island where if men just embraced just a few of his rules, if not all 12 rules, just a few of it, like the island would just be that much better. Just challenges that men have, I think you mentioned, I don't know if it was during the recording, but like the suicide rates going up kind of thing. And just,
I thought you mentioned that.
That was me?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, there. But yeah, like there's things that men struggle with, like men who they'll have a child with a woman, and then because the local court and stuff combined with the culture, just the women are always right when it comes to that. Like, never mind that she's a poor parent or whatever, she's abusive, but the fact that she's the mother, by default she wins custody and she can determine if the dad can or can't. You know what I mean? Like just things that men struggle with.
I'm aware.
Yeah. So that's
like most of Jordan Peterson's listeners are young men struggling with their own problems.
Exactly. And a lot of it is because of lack of guidance. Like a lot of people here, myself included.
Well, lack of guidance, and also the opposite. Just the disapproval of proper masculinity.
Yeah, exactly. I actually never, I know that I've dabbled in it, but I've never actually seen somebody word it that simply and profoundly, just disapproval of masculine. Like just the fact that you're a man and you're not effeminate.
Or you can make it even more extreme, to the demonization of masculinity.
Yeah. Well, one precedes the other, right? Like first it's a disapproval, but if you don't change to meet my approval, then now I demonize you because you're not doing what I want you to. We have a little over 20 more minutes of this. We've been at this for almost an hour, though.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
If anything, we can probably just wrap this up, because I remember you saying you like to kind of keep it pretty short.
It's not like I like to keep it. I'm just saying that that's just how my channel is at the moment.
Gotcha.
I would say I don't mind it being short.
Gotcha. Well, we could kind of keep it short because it was more meant to be a demo of everything. We can have like a proper one.
Yeah. How does your proper ones go? Do you have like a list of topics that you're intending on talking about, or is it more casual like this?
It's still very much like this. It's just I'm not having to hold my microphone. Like we all got set up and can have, or we have drinks, like just something that's maybe more planned, not so much proper. Because I do like how this turned out. Just the natural. There's a bit of rawness to it. You said you're going to edit it though. It's up to you. For me, I'm fine, like mistakes and all, because that shows the listener like, hey, it's imperfect. Like I care more about just being honest and truthful.
Yeah, it's not purely information, but reactions to the informations, stuttering, little long pauses, because that shows you that someone's thinking. There's a lot of implications of emotion.
Yeah. What you could do though, because like I said, I'm going to give you a copy. Like you could totally just make take clips of it, put it up on your YouTube. You know, what you do with it is up to you, man. Like, once I press record, I know, like, I don't know if you've noticed when I first hit record, I kind of changed a little bit of my persona.
Yeah, just a little bit. Like, at first you weren't looking at me.
Yeah.
First of all.
Yeah. Just because I'm aware now that I'm recorded.
It's like you were talking to your audience.
That too. You know, I try to make them a part of it. Like, whoever's listening, I don't want them to feel like voyeuristic.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
It's understandable. Like, especially with intros too. They have to be aware of the context of the topic, the conversation.
Yeah, it's quite fun. But really, that's what I felt worked for me. One thing I don't want to do is look like I'm just copying someone. I mean, as much as we love Rogan, I love Rogan. All these other ones, it's like I don't want to sound. And you just said like we shouldn't parrot. Yeah, okay, I agree. Like, don't imitate or emulate, not imitate, but like pull what works for me,
exactly.
Discard what doesn't, and add what is my own. That's why I love Jeet Kune Do. Like this podcast is my Jeet Kune Do of podcasts, or try to keep it unique, but I will have influence. There's obvious influence from different sources.
Nothing's original.
Yeah,
no idea is an original concept.
I agree. I had to come to terms with that too. Like, I was like, I'm not so unique. I'm not a. So in Fight Club they say that he's like, you are not a unique and special snowflake. You're part of the compost of the world, kind of shit. You know, I highly recommend giving it a view.
I feel like if you do think you're a unique and special snowflake, you're the one who's most likely copying someone else.
I will ponder on that. That's pretty profound.
Okay, just one little example. Let's talk about who we associate snowflakes as.
Okay.
I guess I'll answer that. Basically, people on the left or the extreme SJWs and liberals.
Gotcha.
So since they're little snowflakes, they think, they're the most unique person in the world. But really, they're just listening to ideologues and demagogues in their preferred political party. So really, are they actually thinking for themselves? Or are they just hearing what they want to hear and associating with each other in group identity?
Agreed. And then even on that, like, some of them even end up looking like each other.
So I guess that's what I mean by what I said before.
If you think you're a unique and beautiful snowflake,
you're most likely the opposite.
You're going to love Fight Club. I'd like you to watch it as soon as you can. And if anything, why don't we do that? Why don't we...
Also, before we get into the next topic, I would say this is only common in liberals and SJWs. People on the right are succumb to this too. I'm just saying, not that many, but a lot of them, especially the ones who were just at the Capitol last week, storming it.
Yeah,
they did that because they idealize Donald Trump, and they were willing to take such actions because they didn't get what they want politically.
Agreed.
Yeah,
I like how you had to stick that in there too, just to make sure. Hey, I heard you on that fucking podcast.
Yeah, like, I'm no conservative whatsoever.
Yeah. Definitely not
maybe
far right.
The basis of my way of thinking aligns with their ideology, but not completely.
Gotcha.
And if it is, it's by coincidence. Gotcha. Like, I don't listen to Charlie Kirk every day, but if he has something to say that's interesting and that's valid through my way of thinking, then I will agree. Like, I could agree with leftists. I could agree with people on the right.
It doesn't define you. Like, just because I agree with you doesn't mean that I'm gonna just 100% side with everything.
Like, I'm not in your group, dude.
Yeah.
It's just that at this time, at this very moment, what you're saying makes sense to me.
Yeah. And I feel like that's when people are more like that. Like, the center is, I mean, nobody's going to be 100, like right there 50-50. Like, you are going to lean more towards, but it's a nice broad center of just kind of playing in that realm instead of just going to the extreme of anyone.
There's also that minority, could be majority, I'm not sure, the ratio of people in the center who base what they think on just gray areas completely. And so they're doing the opposite of what they intend on doing. When they face some type of political dilemma, right? Their end conclusion is always in the center, no matter how good each side's argument is. And I think that's a bad way of looking at problems. Like,
Almost like they're sitting on the fence for every little thing.
exactly.
Okay.
And that I feel like that's driven through a lot of arrogance because they think they're right about everything because each side of the extreme is wrong. But it's not like that way. It's not truly a center way of thinking. Like being in a center means that you're unbiased and you're open to whatever makes sense at the proper moment and context. It doesn't mean that you have to take the middle position every time or no position at all, because that's disorderly. You're always going to be undecisive and chaotic.
Like there are some things that it is black or white. Like not everything. Like there's a whole lot of gray, but there
Yeah.
is such a thing as black or white. Or at least if you come down to your beliefs, like maybe the people on opposite ends of the spectrum, they can still argue, but it's like you still got to align. There's a few things that you should pick a side on at the very minimum. Like there's a lot of gray. Is that what you're saying? Like there's a lot of gray, but there are a few subjects or ideas where you should pick a side.
It's not always gray.
Gotcha. Okay.
But there's many of it. There's lots of it.
Definitely.
It's not really a position that you have to take in terms of the identity of being a centrist, but it's a way of thinking that you have to adopt.
Okay. That one I don't know if I would want to, but I'm not so knowledgeable. I think you even said it like you kind of deviated away from getting really political
Yeah.
and talking. Like, so
Like it just hinders you from just gaining new ideas. Like you'd want to expose yourself to the truth as much as possible, not be cloudy with political nonsense from your ideology.
Gotcha.
It stops many people from like actually perceiving the world of how it is.
That one, because that seems like really meaty for another conversation.
Okay,
How do you
we'll
feel
continue this later. Then.
Yeah, let's for that one, because that, especially because micro SD card has limited space remaining. Yeah, it's like telling me it's got like maybe 14 minutes on it.
Yeah, we'll talk about this later.
Definitely.
Specifically on the topic of free speech and the importance of it.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Well, that's it for this episode or this quest. If anything, we'll go ahead and post it up and put information on about your podcast.
Yeah.
And we, little collaboration here and there. All right. Thank you for listening, and here's the outro.